Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So, I told you guys this morning that the WNBA league office would eventually come down with some sort of punishment against the Indiana Fever because of the way they handled this entire injury report situation surrounding Caitlin Clark. And honestly, this was something that felt inevitable once all of the details started coming out. The only thing we really didn't know was how serious the punishment was actually going to be. Now, some people thought the WNBA might hand the Indiana Fever a massive fine. Some people thought maybe the league office would just issue a warning and move on. But now it looks like we finally have our answer. The Indiana Fever have officially been handed their medicine for not being transparent about Caitlin Clark's injuries and not properly following the league's injury reporting protocols. And listen, this is where things get really interesting because we also have an Indiana Fever reporter who has been doing a very good job covering this entire situation. But at the same time, she is definitely playing a dangerous game right now because when you continue exposing people inside an organization, especially somebody as important as Stephanie White, eventually people start getting uncomfortable. And when people in power get uncomfortable, sometimes access starts disappearing. Credentials start getting questioned. People suddenly stop getting information. So we've got to talk about it, all right? We've got to get right into this situation. Now, courtesy of Chloe Peterson, shout out to Chloe Peterson, by the way, we're going to be talking a lot more about Chloe Peterson throughout this vlog because she has really been on top of this entire story. Seriously, shout out to Chloe Peterson. According to Chloe Peterson, the Indiana Fever have received a warning for failure to report Caitlin Clark's injury status leading up to Wednesday's game, league sources tell me. And honestly, when you look at everything that happened, this situation made the Indiana Fever look really bad. Fans were buying expensive tickets expecting to see Caitlin Clark play. People were traveling long distances. The hype surrounding Indiana Fever games is obviously massive because Caitlin Clark has become the biggest draw in the WNBA. And yet the organization was not being transparent about her injury status. Now, in my opinion, the Indiana Fever are honestly lucky that they only received a warning, because I personally think the punishment should have been much more severe. I think there should have been a hefty fine attached to the situation, because fans spent real money based on expectations created by the organization. Whether people want to hear that or not, that is the reality. But nonetheless, the warning has officially been issued, and now the Indiana Fever are clearly trying to clean things up moving forward. Because if you look at this latest update, again, courtesy of Chloe Peterson, Caitlin Clark, back, is probable for tomorrow's game against Golden State. And interestingly enough, Caitlin Clark is the only player listed on the Indiana Fever injury report. So clearly, the Indiana Fever are now trying to make sure they stay on top of these reports and avoid another situation with the WNBA league office. But we've also got to circle back to Chloe Peterson because she recently appeared on the Fever Insider Indy Star TV panel, and she absolutely exposed Stephanie White during that discussion. And this kind of reporting takes courage because not everybody is willing to challenge powerful people connected to a professional sports organization. So I definitely respect Chloe Peterson for continuing to keep it real about Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever not being transparent regarding injuries. She is taking a risk by doing this, and honestly, I respect that a lot.
But especially with, what you said, Tony, on, players do get rest days, practice rest days. But I think there is an important designation between, are they just resting because, they have a scheduled off day, or do they have a concern that they are, that they are working with? And I think that was the difference between having, what Steph called a pro day, a rest day, and having something that would actually be of concern for not practicing.
So I'm glad you brought that up. This is where I think it gets weird. So if you have a rest day, you're resting. Stephanie White told us that she got treatment on her back. Are you getting treatment on your back because you're resting your back or because your back is injured? And when I go back through, I'm sure you might play it, Brian, but when you go back through the audio of all of our questions, some of them I have to laugh at because if you just say it in a vacuum, it's such a dumb question. Like, did she practice? Is she injured? is this ongoing? But you're trying to get more information out of them because they're not forthcoming from the start. I dealt with a similar situation a couple of years ago with Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson Sr. And initially, they did the same thing. It actually was the same body part and everything. Shane Steichen came out and said, oh, his back is sore, he can't play. And the fan base lost their minds because they were like, wait a second. At that time, it was late in the season. Different scenario for Caitlin. It's early in the season, but in that time, late in the cold season, they're like, what do you mean he's not playing? His back is sore. It's football. Everyone's sore. And come to find out through some further reporting, he had severe back spasms and couldn't walk. And so we found that out in the hours and the day after the final practice of the week on that Friday. That Sunday, after he didn't play, the first question, or one of the first questions in the post-game presser is, oh yeah, forget about the game, about his back. We now have more information. Can you speak to or allow some more details on that? And so it went from being, in a long-winded way of me saying this, a one-day story to a 3 or 4 day story because you didn't nip it in the bud initially and just tell the truth, or not. They didn't lie about anything, but like you didn't offer enough information for everyone to have a reasonable understanding of what to expect. So I felt like from a fan perspective, I can feel them on this. If you spent money to see Caitlin Clark play basketball and you didn't find out about that until 10 minutes before fans were let in, oh, she's not playing tonight, that's wrong to me, in my opinion, and how they handled that. And I think the league, and if you want the league to continue to grow, you have to be transparent about that beyond even just the betting side of it, but also like you have the betting and the revenue side, but you also have the fan and spending money side, and both of those things could benefit.
I thought Chloe was going to go, so I just literally her.
Well, kind of on top of that with your point about transparency, James, I think the messaging from Steph about Caitlin's injury just overall was not necessarily clear. You know, pregame, she said, she's healthy, we're not managing anything. And she was very, direct about the fact that they're not managing anything and she's healthy. But then obviously we had the question of, if she's healthy and they're not managing anything, why is she not playing? And that led to your question of, is she injured post game, which Steph White did not directly answer, I would say. She said her back is sore, anything more than that, that's the training staff, which is not a no. So I think kind of just on top of all of the injury report stuff, the messaging on if Caitlin Clark is injured, what the injury is, if it's ongoing, is just unclear as well, especially with the fact, Steph said it was not ongoing, but then earlier in the season, a week or two ago, she said, Caitlin, along with a lot of other players, they're going to be going back to the tunnel to be getting adjustments during the game. And for Caitlin, that's getting her back adjusted because Caitlin said her back gets out of line pretty quickly. And I guess my question about that would be, is this all the same thing, where then it is an ongoing thing, or is the back issue that kept her out of yesterday's game a separate thing that is not ongoing?
He never directly answers anything. Chloe Peterson is spot on the money here. Seriously, Chloe Peterson is saying exactly what a lot of fans have already been thinking throughout this entire situation involving the Indiana Fever and Stephanie White. Okay, now this is somebody who actually gets into the room, asks questions directly, attends the press conferences, and has real access to the team. And listen, whether people want to admit it or not, she is risking a lot by exposing Stephanie White like this. I'm just keeping it real. We've seen situations before where teams get upset with reporters for asking uncomfortable questions. We've seen people lose access. We've seen organizations try to get credentials taken away because certain reporters kept pressing coaches and front offices too hard. Now, I personally hope that doesn't happen to Chloe Peterson because she's genuinely very good at her job. But let's not pretend the Indiana Fever are going to enjoy being exposed publicly like this. They're probably not happy about it at all. The thing is, Chloe Peterson isn't lying. That's the important part here. She's literally pointing out contradictions that everybody can see with their own eyes. Before the game, Stephanie White was basically saying they were just managing things and acting like there wasn't anything serious going on. Then after the game, suddenly the messaging changes. Now they're saying they're not managing anything. But then at the same time, Stephanie White says it's a back injury. So which one is it? Because those statements don't line up. That's why fans are frustrated. That's why people feel like the Indiana Fever were not being transparent. Stephanie White kept moving the goalposts every time questions were asked. And then whenever the explanations stopped making sense, suddenly it became, well, you'd have to talk to the medical staff. Okay, but who exactly are people supposed to talk to from the medical staff? Nobody from the medical staff is standing at the podium answering questions. This is exactly why the wnba stepped in and issued a warning to the Indiana Fever. The league clearly felt like the injury report process was not being handled correctly. And honestly, this entire thing has created unnecessary drama around Caitlin Clark and the organization. And another thing Chloe Peterson brought up that made a lot of sense was the chiropractor situation. I'm going to be honest with you. You don't normally hear about professional athletes randomly needing back adjustments during games unless something is actually bothering them physically. Going to see a chiropractor at the 8-minute mark of the second quarter is not just some casual thing people do for fun. Those are measures people usually take when they are dealing with some type of injury or discomfort. So again, shout out to Chloe Peterson for not being afraid to tell the truth, regardless of job titles, pressure, or team access. At the end of the day, she's doing her job. And honestly, she's exposing Stephanie White, but she's not exposing anything fans didn't already suspect. The Indiana Fever already got their warning from the WNBA. Now they're going to have to step up the professionalism because the way this situation was handled with the fans was completely unacceptable. Get down in the comments and let me know what you think. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share the channel.